There's a specific moment that happens in elevators. Two strangers reach for the button panel at the same time. Their hands don't even touch. There is still 3 feet of space between them, and yet one of them says it. Sorry. No collision occurred, no actual inconvenience was created. Nothing happened that required an apology, but the word, it came out anyway, automatic as breathing. This reflex shows up everywhere. Someone walks into a stationary person, and the stationary person apologizes. A waiter brings the wrong order, and the customer says sorry for pointing it out. People apologize for asking questions, for taking up space, for existing in a way that might, theoretically at some point, inconvenience someone else. The behavior looks polite on the surface, but underneath, something else is operating. The compulsion to apologize for nothing reveals a specific psychological mechanism, one that's learned, reinforced, and surprisingly difficult to unlearn. It's not about manners, it's about a distorted calculation of worth, responsibility, and the right to occupy physical and social space. Understanding why this happens requires looking at how people learn to navigate power dynamics, social hierarchies, and the unspoken rules about who gets to take up room in a world without justification. The pattern becomes visible in childhood. Watch a group of kids playing. One child accidentally bumps another while reaching for a toy. The bumped child immediately says sorry, despite being the one who got hurt. The behavior doesn't match the situation. The apology is backwards. This reversal doesn't happen by accident. It gets installed through specific interactions, repeated thousands of times across years. A child spills juice. The parent's response matters here. Some parents treat the spill as a simple accident, something to clean up without drama. Other parents respond as if the spill represents a moral failing. The child learns that taking up space, making mistakes, having needs, these things require apology, not because they cause genuine harm, but because they existed at all. The distinction matters. There is a difference between teaching accountability for actual harm versus teaching someone that their presence is inherently problematic. People who apologize excessively often report similar childhood experiences. Being told they're too much, too loud, too sensitive, too needy, too demanding. The message crystallizes. Your natural state is excessive. You must apologize for it. Some families operate on the principle that children should be seen and not heard. The child learns that having thoughts, feelings, or needs that require adult attention constitutes an imposition. Apology becomes a preemptive strike, a way to soften the blow of existing. This condition doesn't always look dramatic. It happens in small moments. A parent sighs heavily when a child asks for help with homework. A teacher responds with irritation when a student asks a question. A caregiver expresses frustration when a child is sick and requires care. These interactions teach a specific lesson. Your needs are burdensome. Your presence requires justification. Apology becomes the price of admission to social spaces. The psychology here involves learned helplessness, combined with hypervigilance. The child begins scanning every interaction for signs they've overstepped. They develop an internal monitoring system that constantly asks, "Am I too much right now? Have I done something wrong? Should I apologize?" This system doesn't shut off in adulthood. It runs in the background, generating apologetic responses to neutral situations. The behavior intensifies in specific contexts. Gender plays a documented role. Research on conversational patterns show women apologize significantly more than men in professional settings, often for things that don't warrant apology. A woman interrupts a meeting to share an important insight. She begins with, "Sorry to interrupt, but..." A man does the same thing without the apologetic preface. He just speaks. The difference isn't biological. It's learned through socialization. Girls receive different feedback than boys about assertiveness, space talking, and vocal volume. A boy who speaks confidently gets praised for leadership. A girl exhibiting identical behavior gets called bossy. These labels shape behavior. The girl learns that asserting herself creates negative social consequences. Apology becomes a strategy to soften her presence, to make her more palatable, less threatening, easier to accept. The workspace amplifies this dynamic. Women report feeling the need to apologize before disagreeing, before asking questions, before asserting boundaries. The apology serves as a social lubricant, soothing over the transgression of taking up professional space. Men do this too, but the pattern manifests differently. Men who've experienced trauma, particularly in childhood, often develop similar apologetic reflexes. The behavior crosses gender lines when power dynamics are in play. People from marginalized communities report similar patterns. The apology attempts to mitigate threat, to signal harmlessness, to smooth social interactions before conflict emerges. This isn't weakness, it's adaptation to hostile environments. The psychological mechanism underlining excessive apology involves distorted responsibility assessment. The person over-apologizes because they've internalized the belief that they're responsible for other people's emotional states. Someone else gets angry. The over-apologizer immediately assumes they've caused it. This belief system treats other people's emotions as evidence of personal failure. It removes the possibility that other people might be having their own reactions based on their own issues, histories, or bad days. The cognitive distortion operates like this. If someone is upset in my presence, I must have caused it, and I must fix it through apology. This thinking patterns develops from childhood experiences, where the child was held responsible for adult emotions. The parent who says, "You're making me so angry right now," teaches the child that they control the parent's emotional state. The child internalizes this backwards causality. In adulthood, this manifests as hyper-responsibility. The person scans every interaction for signs of displeasure and interprets any negative emotions as their fault. Apology becomes automatic, a way to discharge the anxiety of believing you've harmed someone. The behavior creates real problems. Excessive apology erodes credibility. When someone apologizes constantly for non-offenses, their apologies lose meaning. The word becomes filler, like or when they actually need to apologize for genuine harm. The apology carries less weight. It also communicates uncertainty and low status. In professional settings, the person who apologizes before speaking gets taken less seriously. Their ideas receive less consideration. The apologetic framing suggests the ideas themselves might not be valuable. Relationships suffer too. A partner who apologizes constantly creates an exhausting dynamic. The other person has to repeatedly reassure them that nothing is wrong, that they haven't done anything offensive, that their presence is acceptable. This emotional labor wears people down. The apologizer often doesn't realize they're doing it. The behavior operates below conscious awareness. They apologize reflexively, the way someone might say "bless you" after a sneeze. It's automatic. Bringing the behavior into consciousness requires external feedback. Someone has to point out the pattern. You just apologized 3 times in 2 minutes. What exactly are you apologizing for? Often the person can't answer. They apologize without knowing why, the reflex fired without conscious decision. Breaking the pattern requires several steps. First, awareness. The person needs to notice when they're apologizing and ask whether the situation actually warrants apology. Did I cause harm? Did I violate someone's boundaries? Did I fail to meet a commitment? If the answer is no, the apology is unnecessary. This sounds simple, but it's not. The urge to apologize feels overwhelming. Not apologizing creates anxiety. The person worries that without the apology, they'll be seen as rude, inconsiderate, or difficult. Some people find it helpful to substitute different language. Instead of "sorry to bother you," try "thanks for your time." Instead of "sorry for asking," try "I have a question." The reframe shifts from apologetic to appreciative or neutral. This linguistic change can gradually reshape the underlying thought pattern. Language influences cognition. Changing what we say can change how we think. Therapy helps, particularly approaches that address cognitive distortions and core beliefs. A therapist can help identify the childhood experiences that installed the excessive apologizing and work to reframe those experiences. The work involves learning that other people's emotional states aren't your responsibility, that you can take up space without justification, that your needs and preferences have value, that asserting yourself doesn't make you a bad person. These lessons contradict years of conditioning. They feel wrong at first. Not apologizing feels aggressive, selfish, rude. This discomfort is expected. The old belief system is fighting back. People who've successfully reduced excessive apologizing report that it took months of conscious effort. They had to catch themselves mid-apology, pause, and consciously choose different words. Over time, the new pattern started to feel more natural. The shift changes relationships. People who stop over-apologizing report being taken more seriously at work. Their romantic partnerships become less exhausting. They feel more solid in themselves. The social implications of excessive apologizing extend beyond individual psychology. The behavior reflects and reinforces power structures. When women apologize more than men in professional settings, it maintains gender hierarchies. The apologetic framing signals lower status. It communicates that women's ideas require permission to exist in professional spaces. When people from marginalized communities over-apologize, it reflects the reality that their presence is often treated as problematic. They've learned through experience that taking up space without apology creates negative consequences. The behavior makes sense as an adaptation. It's not pathological. It's a rational response to hostile environments. This doesn't mean that the behavior should continue unchallenged. It means the challenge needs to be addressed, both individual patterns and systemic issues. Individually, people can work on apologizing less. Systemically, we can work on creating environments where people don't need to apologize for existing. This requires examining how we respond to others' presence and needs. Do we treat questions as interruptions or as engagement? Do we respond to mistakes with disproportionate frustration? Do we make people feel that their needs are burdensome? The way we respond to others shape their behavior. If we want people to stop over-apologizing, we need to stop treating their presence as something requiring apology. There is a counter pattern worth noting. Some people never apologize. They cause genuine harm and refuse accountability. They violate boundaries and dismiss others' distress. This is the opposite problem: under-apologizing. These people have learned that their wants and needs trump everyone else's, that their comfort matters more than others' well-being, that admitting fault represents weakness. Both patterns stem from distorted beliefs about worth and responsibility. The over-apologizer believes everyone else's needs matter more than theirs. The under-apologizer believes their needs matter more than everyone else's. Healthy functioning sits in the middle. Apologize when you've caused genuine harm. Don't apologize when you haven't. Recognize that your needs matter and so do others. Navigate conflicts through honest communication rather than excessive difference or dismissive denial. This middle ground requires accurate assessment of situations. It requires distinguishing between I made a mistake that hurt someone and someone is upset and I feel responsible for their feelings. These are different situations requiring different responses. The first warrants apology and amends. The second warrants compassion for yourself and appropriate boundaries with the other person. Learning to make this distinction takes practice. It requires challenging deeply held values about responsibility and worth. The elevator scenario from the beginning reveals something about how we navigate shared space. Two people reaching for the same button represents a minor coordination problem, nothing more. Yet one person immediately apologizes as if their presence in the elevator created an imposition. This reflex carries information. It tells us that this person has learned their presence requires justification, that occupying space in the world is something they do on borrowed time, that they must apologize for the inconvenience of existing. The belief system underlying excessive apology is invisible on the surface. It hides behind politeness, but it creates genuine suffering. The constant anxiety of believing you're too much. The exhausting work of monitoring every interaction for signs of transgression. The gradual erosion of self-trust that comes from treating your own needs as inherently problematic. Breaking this pattern means confronting uncomfortable truths about what we learned in childhood. It means questioning beliefs about worth and deservingness that feels fundamentally true. It means tolerating the discomfort of taking up space without apology, even when every cell in your body insists you should shrink. This work matters, not just for individual well-being, but for dismantling systems that tell certain people their existence requires justification. Every time someone stops apologizing for nothing, they challenge those systems. They claim the right to exist without permission. The change starts small. Notice when you apologize. Ask whether the situation warrants it. Choose different words when it doesn't. Feel the discomfort of not apologizing and do it anyway. Over time, the new pattern becomes familiar. The anxiety lessens. Taking up space starts to feel less like transgression and more like birthright. That shift changes everything. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Stay cozy, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.